yesterday's podcast, we talked about feminism and the role that's played in the destruction of society as we know it. And if you haven't heard that podcast, I do suggest go back and take a listen to it. Maybe before you listen to this one even, because this is going to be kind of an extension on what feminism did to society and the direct impact it had on the family unit, man, woman, and then also how we can sort of recapture what I believe the male-female relationship was always supposed to be, and as everything else in this world the enemy has done, has turned it into something that is unrecognizable and is not what God had intended. And I look at my life, and I can only ever start with my life and my experiences and what I've learned. And I've learned a lot in my life because I've chosen, I guess, to put myself through a lot. And a lot has happened to me that I haven't necessarily had a ton of direct control over. But at other times, you always have to remember that certain decisions you make do have an impact and sometimes have a snowball impact that isn't necessarily a positive thing. And so in my life, I have been divorced, and I was married for 13 years. I got married very young, at about 20, and so I was divorced at 33. And no, that's not some cryptic message. I just happened to be 33 when I was divorced. And I look back at that marriage, and I was just talking to my parents this morning about some things, and that marriage came up, and my mother had some things that she shared with me that she had seen from that marriage. And it was weird because as I think back on those 13 years together, man, I cannot even remember what it was that her and I used to talk about at all. It's very strange. And I think it was a very shallow kind of relationship. Unfortunately, it was never, basically you could say it was never what I knew I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. I was just sort of experimenting, I guess, at a young age, at 20. And I was moving across the country, and I didn't necessarily want to do it on my own. It was kind of a selfish move, really. But I did fall in love with her in time. But I always knew it wasn't the type of lifetime love. It just wasn't. And, so I made some poor decisions when I was 33, and that ended the marriage. But we got a wonderful child out of it. And then I spent about 4 years after that single, living alone, doing a lot of dating, too much dating, not finding anybody at all. And the type of dating I was doing at that time was not necessarily the healthy kind of dating. It was going to bars, meeting women at bars, or, online. I did some online dating, like with Plenty of Fish, and went on some dates, a lot of dates that way, and they were just all the same thing. It was ridiculous. It was such a waste of time. I got the attitude through the years of doing that where, I'd go on a date, and it was just it was a different face, but the same situation, same conversation, same everything over and over and over again. And I thought, how the heck do people meet people? It just seems impossible. I tried everything. I would talk to women in the grocery store even sometimes. I'd see somebody I thought was cute or looked friendly or whatever, and I would even do that. And nothing really ever came of that either. And so I just kind of began to give up on relationships in general, thinking, well, it's just not for me. And I know a lot of people feel that way. I talk to a lot of people that are in that mode in their lives where they're just like, it's just not an option anymore. Well, that's a weapon of the enemy, because that's not what our Creator wants for us at all. He doesn't want us alone at all. He wants us paired up together, man, woman. That's how he made us. And so I went from there, and I finally met a woman that was different, and we got along, and we had a lot in common. And this was before I got into, I guess you could say, the quote-unquote conspiracy stuff too deep. I mean, I'd always had my eyes open to certain things, but not until, was it about 2015, where I really started to understand the Federal Reserve. I started to understand 9/11 and the moon, and those were the things that kind of got me going on a very, very, very deep path of research and study for 5 years that I'm sure a lot of you have done the same. But so when I met her, I hadn't yet begun that. That was about a year, actually, before I did. And so we got along, and we ended up getting together. It was always a challenge. We just never were really on the same page, but we were never on a different page either. And we really liked each other. And for years and years, we were just absolutely best friends and did everything together. And it just made sense to make a relationship out of it, even though there were a lot of things in that relationship, again, that we just didn't mesh personality-wise. And so that failed after about 7 years. And so, you know, every time something like that happens, I think we become more cynical about the possibility of having what I think for most of us is our dream. I mean, we can talk ourselves out of the fact that we don't want that anymore, that we don't want that perfect partner that God has already ordained for us. We can talk us out of that, or we can talk ourselves out of that and just say, well, look, God just wants me alone. I don't know, man. I don't know if that's true. I mean, yeah, there's certain people in the Bible that God definitely wanted alone to serve him. But in general, I mean, we've been created to be a couple, to be together. There's so much more power in that. There's so much more power is what God is showing me. So much more power of creation and power of beauty and just power of life and happiness. And how men and women balance each other out in so many different ways. Like, we take that for granted, but I think maybe we don't see that until God shows us who that perfect partner is, that person that you can talk to for 12 hours straight and know there's still a lifetime of things to talk about. And I think for everybody that does exist. And I also think that we're at a time right now in history where God is moving in a way on this end for these things that he's really bringing a refreshing into us, or he's about to, on the importance of man and woman. It's been under such an attack for so long. Think about the LGBTQ agenda, and I probably can't talk much about that on YouTube because I'll get this video taken down. I don't know if they're still screening for LGBTQ stuff or what, but they sure used to. But just look at what that agenda has done. And I remember back in 2010, I was on Facebook, you know, back when Facebook was cool and was a thing. And you could actually see information and see what your friends were saying. And I haven't used Facebook personally since 2014 now. But in 2010, I was very active. And I remember a friend of mine had posted, this was right around the time where getting gay marriage approved was really starting to get pushed. And I think it was in Minnesota or something maybe that it might have gotten approved. This was well before it was like nationally, which I think was 2015. I don't remember. But, and one of my friends, a very, very close friend at the time, her name was Cassie. And she had posted about, you know, gay marriage and approval and all that. And immediately, and it was never like I was against gay marriage or for it one way or the other. At that time, I didn't really care. I didn't have a solid opinion on it at all. I thought I guess my attitude in 2010 was more like live and let live. And if it doesn't affect my life, I don't care. But I didn't understand why they're pushing it down our throats so much either. I'm like, because my attitude is live and let live. And so shouldn't that be yours too? Like, you don't need to change my mind that what you're doing is okay or isn't in the LGBTQ world. I don't care, you know, and I never really have. But they were shoving it down our throats. And I'm like, this doesn't smell right to me. And so I remember commenting on that particular post, and she was just, you know, pro pro-gay marriage, very, and my comment was very simple, and it was something along the lines of, I don't have a problem with gay marriage, but I said, don't you think this is a little bit of a slippery slope? What's next? And I said, can people marry animals? Can people marry inanimate objects? I understand. And holy crap, were my friends irate with me? Again, this was Facebook, when Facebook was cool. So it was actually your real friends and your real family that were seeing what you were posting. And I was just making a point, and I didn't even think it was controversial. Like, I guess I'm so, I don't know, out of the loop on offending people. I guess I always kind of have been. I just say what I think, and that was what I thought. In the moment, I thought, yeah, gay marriage, but what about after that? And so many other things. Like, where do you finally draw the line as to what marriage actually is? And now, fast forward 11 years or 10 years or whatever, and it came true. It totally came true. Like, it's the idea of marriage now is just, it's so bastardized. It doesn't even have any meaning at all. And there's a reason for that. It's because it's so important. Marriage is so important, man and woman. And when I say marriage, I'm not talking about going and getting a license from the state. I personally feel, and funny, I should add this. This is a funny story. My 13-year marriage, from when I was 20, I got married in a courthouse in Orlando, Florida. We didn't have a wedding or anything. We just got married in the courthouse. And through a strange glitch, which the details don't matter, but it was a strange glitch, we were never legally married. And we didn't even find that out until we had decided to get divorced. And went to go through the proceedings, and the judge determined or discovered that our marriage was never legal. So we didn't even need to get a divorce. And he just basically, for the effect of paperwork or whatever, did what he called annulled it. Annulled the fake license or whatever. I didn't understand it, but I'm like, that's cool, So then we were just able to, as far as with custody and stuff like that at that time, we were just able to work it out amongst each other, handshake agreement, and everything seemed to work. Didn't stay that way, but it worked that way for many years. My point in telling you that is because we were married, and I will never say that wasn't my wife for 13 years, but according to the state, it wasn't. That's how relevant the state is to marriage. The state is completely irrelevant to marriage. We don't need licenses. That has nothing to do with God. Like, people get this thing stuck in your head. Well, I can't live with somebody unless I'm married. Well, what does it mean to be married? Well, I need to have a license. Oh, really? So you need the state to tell you if you're okay religiously to live with a woman or the man you love? That seems crazy to me. So I think marriage in and of itself is going to be something different as we go into the future. For those of us who understand that the government is the actual enemy, not the friend, why would we want them in our marriage? So I think it'll be more about traditions and whatever within God and our Creator and joining us together as a married couple in His eyes is really all that matters. It's all that ever mattered. We just got bamboozled into thinking the state somehow should be involved. It's so crazy, right? So I'm glad I actually never even owned a marriage license my entire life. I just got lucky on that one. But it's something else. It's like I think that the way, for those of you that are alone and single right now, and thinking, how the hell am I going to meet somebody in this environment? God is moving on that front big time right now. He is aligning His people. He's doing it because we need to be, and He knows that. He knows we need each other, and He needs us together so He can work through us in unison to defeat what's happening here. And so He's moving like this rushing wave. I feel it, man. To bring men and women together, the ones that he wants together to be kind of this powerful force. And so what we're going to have to remember, I've been thinking a lot about this. We have always have traditional ways stuck in our heads of how we do things, I think, right? And one of those is how we court, I guess would be the word, in a relationship. And you take your time, and you go on little dates, and you do things like this, and you do things like that. And after a certain amount of dates, there may be a kiss, or maybe on the first date, or, and all these different things, and all these little rules that we have. And this is how I date, and this is how I'm going to find the partner that I want to be with. Well, how has that worked out in your life? Because that never worked out in my life at all. Like, we think that's the way we meet new people and meet that partner. And all it really does is it confuses you more, and it makes you end up thinking like I used to think. Same situation, different face. What the hell's the difference? This is ridiculous. It was almost like walking around in the world right now where everybody's wearing a mask and nobody looks any different, and you date enough and it ends up being that same way, even though you're looking at the person, a different person. It's just the same conversation. So it doesn't work. The movies have told us that that's how it works. But it's never worked for me, and I'm 44. And if you're single right now and you're around my age, or even if you're 25 and you're just lost and like, man, I'm never going to find anybody, it's not going to work that way. And even more so in today's world, now it's almost impossible to do that. What are you going to do? Like go out to dinner with your masks on? And then go to the bar if it's even open. I mean, there's a lot of areas in the world this stuff isn't even open. You can't even go out and date. Talk about impossible to meet somebody new. What are you supposed to do? Be happy just chatting online with somebody? Well, that's what they want us to do. They want us to live our worlds digitally. And God is like, And so God can use digital for sure to bring us together. He can use anything to bring us together, but we can't force it. And God's timing, as stupid as it sounds, and you've heard it 100 times, God's timing is always perfect. Always. He's never too early. He's never too late. If there's one thing I know about God in all my frustrations in life and all my frustrations in trying to figure out how to serve God and praying to God, one thing I've learned for sure is timing is always perfect. And every time he makes a move, you know for sure it's him. Because the timing couldn't have been more perfect. And that's how he's going to work to bring us together. I'm sure of it. And so we're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to get out of our comfort zones, because that's what God does. There's not one thing ever in my life that God has asked me to do that was inside my comfort zone. Not one. When he asked me last March to start what I've been doing for the last year, I was terrified. I remember trying to make my first YouTube video like I think in late April or something. I had been running my website since March, but I started YouTube like in April, and I was terrified. I would get nervous, like just to record a video, my heart would start racing and I'd be tripping over what I was saying, and I'm like, I'm going to sound like a moron, and everybody's going to make fun of me, and all the comments are going to be mean, and I'm just not going to be able to handle it, because I'm a sensitive person to stuff like that. I'm very sensitive, unfortunately, to criticism, very sensitive. And so sometimes if I don't respond to comments and stuff like that, it's because I can't read them, because I get so stuck on the mean ones. And there's a lot of mean ones, especially on my website. If you go on the Mark of the Beast article, there's a lot of mean comments, very, very mean stuff on there. And once in a while I'll read them and I'm like, nah, I don't need to read that. Like, come on, people, what's wrong with you? I'm just telling you what I think I've seen, And if you don't agree with it, that's fine. But geez, people are just nasty. And so I think, like, we have to. So my point is when God asks us to do something, or shows us something, or tells us something that he has for our lives, it's not going to be comfortable, even if it's the thing that you've been praying about the most. Maybe you've been sitting there for the last year, and you're just at your wit's end, and you're like, I can't lay here and stare at the ceiling anymore by myself all day, every day. I have so much to give somebody, and I have so much love, and and it's just all wasted, and here I sit all alone, right? And you've been praying to God and praying to God, and nothing's happening. When something does happen, it's not going to be the way you think it is, and it's not going to be comfortable. It's going to challenge you. I guarantee it. He always challenges us. He never answers a prayer without a challenge. Not for me, at least. Not for me. And when I think it's an answer from God and no challenge comes with it, no challenge, I'm like, that's too easy. And I think that's a good way. It's a little off subject right now, but not necessarily. It's a good way to test what you believe God may or may not be saying to you. If sometimes you struggle like hearing God's voice or understanding, that's that still small voice, which I'm telling you is not so still and small anymore. He's starting to roar, man. But that voice, if you're not totally tuned into it yet, first of all, ask him for that. Man, he just wants to open up his word to you. And remember, he is the word, and he wants to open up the word and show you the word. The word is him. The word is him. He's just so amazing right now. But to test what is coming from God, of course, test it against the word every time, because God is the word. If it doesn't match the word, it's not from God. But if it doesn't come with a challenge, man, I cannot think of a time in my life where God just handed me something over on a silver platter without a challenge and something to make me uncomfortable first before reaping the reward. And so I think in relationships, in these new relationships between men and women that he's about to form, that's how it's going to be. And it's going to challenge the normal way that you have of thinking and the normal way that I have of thinking as to how people get together. It's not going to be like the movies. It's going to be more like action. It's going to be more like action. Less thinking, more action. And I think that's what God needs from us is less thinking and overthinking and overanalyzing everything and thinking about things the way we used to think about in the old world that's gone. It's been gone for a year, man. It's time to move on. And if we're going to find that happiness that we crave with a partner that's as much a part of us as our own arms are, just one force together, God's going to do it in a way that's going to challenge you, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be the best thing that ever happened to you. So try to listen to that from him. See if he's telling you the same thing. I could be wrong. Your life could be very different than mine, and he's just happening to tell me this personally, but I never make a podcast or a video unless I'm sure it's something God wants me to talk about. So I don't think this is just for me. I think it's how God is going to be working with all of his people. He doesn't want us alone, right? So that is, I think, the answer to crushing feminism in our lives anyway, and starting our own way of living, which we're going to have to do here soon. And God is starting to align us for that. So please listen to him as much as you can when it comes to the things most important to you, because right now he wants to give it. He wants to give you the things that are most important to you. And I'm hearing the word inheritance, right? He wants to give you an inheritance. There's an inheritance that you have on this earth. And it's the most important thing to you, right? But it's not going to be a simple process. So I hope this meant something to you today. And I may be making another podcast yet tonight. There's something I'm batting around in my head. But if not, we'll speak tomorrow. If so, we'll speak tonight. And God bless you. Peace.